Yeah, we shut things down, I guess, April, and chose all the different mediums and everything to do whatever we were doing from a self-guided tour perspective. Obviously those numbers shot up through May, and most of our assets, I've seen them come back down. We're still above pre-COVID levels from a selection standpoint, but I think from a self-guided tour, it's really just kind of meeting people where they want to be. Some people want some help. Some people want to be guided in person. Some people want to just do it all virtually. And it's been kind of just trying to figure out the right mix that delivers, overall value. Some of the initial self-guided tour kind of companies were fairly expensive, or they started realizing how much the adoption was and really started jacking up rates. So we've been working through that. I think numbers, at least on our portfolio, are back above over 50% on wanting to have an in-person tour with somebody, walking them through. But it is sort of catering to the full customer journey. So if you just map it out and say, hey, this is how people want to shop, so I need to have, these kinds of assets have to have, really sophisticated self-guided tours, and this really allows people to kind of come at 8 o'clock at night and tour. And then you've got to think about all the other fun things like safety and all the other things. But there is a channel. There is, clearly somebody wants to go do that. Not everybody can come tour, and I've always wondered, because I came outside the industry, do we really know if we do better leasing if we're opening at different hours, or we just always open 9 to 5? It's always just kind of this, chicken and egg situation. I don't know if we really have any great data around it, because I always get questioned when we look at our leasing data and we have a nice spike at 8 o'clock and our people are like just finishing applications at that time. Or is it because, self-guided tours are available at that time, and just kind of working through that?
I think for us, when self-guided tours first came out, we kind of did our own RFP around all the different solutions out there, and then actually went out. I personally was in Alexandria, so I went to a few of the really sexy urban ones that had some of the really high cost solutions, and found myself locked out on a balcony at one point and couldn't get back in, and all kinds of different funny things came through the solution. So I think that, at the end of the day, what I would say around self-guided touring is the solution that we decided to go with actually was the least expensive, and really used technology that was not technology. It was back from the days of lock boxes and real estate, where you would show up, and that worked really well for a quick out of the gate across the portfolio solution, because the app and the experience was something people could relate to, and we weren't having to educate the customer. Everybody could know, oh, I'm going to get a code, I can use a lockbox, I can help myself. Now fast forward, we have now evolved into more sophisticated solutions, but by asset class, not necessarily geography. And I think that sometimes we think you got to pick one product that's going to work across everything, and you might need to start there, but then you really need to be most effective, know your data, know your customers, and pick the solution that works best for that particular situation. And one other thing I would tell you is that we have challenged a most recent problem have been that we have people coming out that don't want the in-person tour, but on the fly they want to be able to do self-guided when they show up. So don't take me, but how do I get access to that apartment home? And there are all kinds of risks and security issues if you just hand keys. We know that. Or if you don't know that, don't do that. And so we have pushed and stretched our vendors to say, how do we get a QR right there in our leasing office that would immediately issue the code via app? Or how do we make that a better piece of the pie of the solution of self-guided touring, and actually embrace self-guided touring at the community, in the clubhouse or at the leasing office?
It sounds like flexibility is the key, in that not every rental prospect wants the same experience, and certainly flexibility by asset class as well. Michele, I'm curious.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. So to your point, what is your Wi-Fi situation there has been one of our biggest hurdles with the app. Not at all of our communities. Some of them have had much more success than others, but with some of the older communities where the internet connect is not as strong and the client is showing up without having completed their homework of loading the app, et cetera. We have some challenges and had to create some workarounds. So there are some communities, to your point, that still are candidates, and the clientele, by the way, still candidates for wanting it somewhat of the old-fashioned way of touring, it truly being self-guided and self-initiated, all on their own terms and patterns without someone else guiding them through the process, even an app. So it depends. And of course, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this as well, we're finding that in urban markets, it's been much more successful than in some of the suburban markets. Then, of course, the higher dollar value on the apartment, some of that clientele, they definitely want a little bit more hand-holding. So it's been kind of all over the charts as far as the self-guided tours are concerned.
That's interesting feedback. I never thought about that, but it sort of makes sense. Is that kind of consistent with what you guys have seen as well?
We thought that initially, at least on our portfolio, and certainly had stronger adoption out of the gate in urban markets. But then we found it really was an education issue and a retrain of our people's mindset in some of our more garden style or our outlier markets was really just the adoption of how do I need help. Like, how do I sell this to my prospect that's calling in or has contacted us, and how do I make that a popular way? And honestly, we've seen greater adoption in the last probably 4 months in our garden style communities than we had seen initially out of the gate, just through retrain.
Cool. And something I actually learned from someone else who may or may not be in this room at this conference is that I don't think self-guided tours has to be as technologically enabled as we perhaps think it does. It certainly can be. It can be that somebody shows up, has their ID loaded into a platform, and can safely interact with the building without any human interaction. But it can also be simple, and it can be that they show up, meet the leasing agent, and have that opportunity to then get the keys or the combo and continue on and successfully tour on their own, because that's the experience they want. And obviously in that situation, you can gain back a lot of operational efficiency. You can just pack more tours in and perhaps have a lower cost on your leasing team. But to at the end of that tour to re-add that human element, Clint, I'm going to turn over to you again here. You showed me something pretty cool earlier today as sort of a sales technique or a leasing technique using video, and I think it'd be neat to bring everyone else in on that experience.
Yeah, kind of video tour, what I showed you outside?
Yeah, just really the follow-up action,
Yeah.
that personalized follow-up that can be
Absolutely.
achieved with video.
So part of any sales process is listening to the prospect and making sure they feel like they're heard, their voice is heard. Pair that up with finding the right community and speaking on the specific topics, right? So what we realized is the creative prospect follow-up and the touch point after the tour, being able to automate and create a personalized video, curate some content, like you were saying, around 5 different types of videos that are high quality, that you feel are up to brand standards, that you trust, so it's not just the Wild West with content that's going left and right to the people you need to get moving to your buildings. But then having that leasing agent being able to personalize a message and just saying, hey Max, thanks so much for coming by today. I know a big part of what you're trying to make in your decision is what's around the community, right? You're new to Dallas and you're looking for restaurants and nightlife and things within a mile proximity. So after this video, I'm going to send you an email with a follow-up of some things you can that are right around here, and you're creating that community outside your 4 wall, and it's not as focused on your building per se, because it's a very competitive market, and we've seen just that personalization. And as long as you're being very cognitive of your time and saying, I'm going to just make sure I'm 10-second clip, personalizing it, and I curate the other content, I follow up with the email, the tracking on that of being able to see when they engage with your content, when they open it, what the engagement of where video is headed soon is the things that you say that actually pique people's interest and get them to move in, to be able to say the right things. And then that goes back into the training around with your leasing agents on the narrative they say for certain things. People are moving in these properties for these 3 or 4 differentiators we have that our competitors don't, and leaning into that on video. But really just create a prospect follow-up, not overcomplicating it, and giving swimming lanes to make it personalized. We've seen people be able to increase the tour-to-close ratios through that.